Federal judges hearing arguments challenging Florida's new law restricting some people from owning property in the state.
Republicans say the law will help protect the United States from hostile nations. TV20 Capitol News Bureau reporter Cody Butler explains why some people feel this will lead to discrimination.
Florida's new law bans several countries and ranking people in their governments from owning land within 10 miles of military bases and other critical infrastructure like airports. The law includes misdemeanor charges for Cuba, Venezuela, Syria, Iran, Russia, and North Korea. The charge is a felony for China.
I'm angry about the law. The law itself is discriminatory, and it's really aimed at keeping Asians out of the state of Florida.
Bethany Lee is a lawyer for the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund, one of the groups suing the state in federal court. She says this law reminds her of the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. She's afraid this could violate the Constitution and the Fair Housing Act.
What will it mean for someone who looks vaguely Asian to step foot into a real estate agent's office?
Opponents argue in federal court this law will have unintended consequences, but the bill's sponsor told senators during the legislative session that this law doesn't affect the average Chinese citizen.
But a state's power to apply its law exclusively to its alien inhabitants as a class is confined to narrow limits.
Tampa Republican Senator Jay Collins sponsored the bill. He says with 21 military bases across the state, Florida needs to have a law like this on the books.
This bill strikes a chord of security in the long term, and we all wish that the world would be a perfect place, but it simply is not. And I think we have to be aware and take people seriously to include these countries of concern.
20 states have similar laws, including 6 approved this year. In Tallahassee, Cody Butler, TV20 News.